going to buy. Yeah, gosh, Chloe,
When Kate said you couldn't come to the movie, I should have just gone home. What movie? When you were studying last night. I never remember. I didn't know that. Maria. Chase.
What?
I can't do this.
Do what?
You're dating my best friend.
If I wasn't.
Hi, Gary. No, you don't need to get up. Please don't get up. That doesn't mean, nope, that doesn't mean that you keep talking to other people. That means that you get to listen to me today. Before we even get started today, we have some business for the club that we need to take care of. Normally, I like to make some comments before we have our music, et cetera. But today, our board has decided to make some changes in our bylaws. And whenever we make changes in our bylaws, our membership, all of you guys need to approve it. And it's a very simple change in the bylaws, and there has been written notice sent out as the bylaws require. We have suggested that we establish a new position, a new officer position, a vice president of club operations. And so at this particular point, I would entertain a motion. Well, thank you. Thank you. I didn't even have to ask. All in favor? See, I didn't even let you say no. There are no abstentions, and there are, and better not be anybody that doesn't approve this. Now, there is a second motion because the board assumed that we would all approve, which we did, assume we would approve this new position, and suggested that we establish a person to fill that position right away. And that's important for Jan Levy and her upcoming tenure as president after I retire. And so that will be, we hope, Cynthia Chereau. So I would like a motion to. All right, there. All right. Can I have a motion that we establish her position unanimously? How's that? Change the motion. All right. All in favor of unanimous? All right. She is unanimously assuming that position. And Jan, you will be very happy. Congratulations, Cynthia. Yeah, yes, Jan is so happy. All right. Now is the time for us to all get up. And especially we need to have Raymond come on forward because, and Bert too, because we're going to be singing, you see the land acknowledgement, we'll deal with that, but this is going to be a very interesting song that we're going to be singing, and it is the Black National Anthem. And this song, it comes from a poem that James Weldon Johnson wrote, and the music came later. But Raymond, you want to come forward? They don't want to hear me sing. They want to hear you sing. I happen to know the words, but you sing.
Thank you. Thank you. Since John introduced the song so very well, before we sing it, I understand today is John's birthday. And I would like for us to sing happy birthday to John. John, you stand over there and be quiet. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound loud at the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the hope that the dark past has brought us. Sing a song full of the faith with the present has taught. Sing the rising sun of the new day begun. Let us march on till victory is done. Thank you.
Well, you guys can all be seated, you know. This is really great. You know, this is a song that that I certainly learned a long time ago, being the chair of the board of the Urban League. And, you know, it sort of was a song that we did sing at Garfield High School. You know, it's special and has a lot of meaning, and we won't go into all of the history, but that sort of brings up the idea. Somebody asked how old I was. It gets to the point that, you know, I'm 3/4 of a century today. Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment if I don't say myself. And I'm still upright. I even went running today. All right, enough of that. And I can say all that because if Bobby were sitting here, and she would have yanked me and I wouldn't have been able to say a word. She doesn't let me talk, certainly not about myself. Well, thank you very much, Raymond and Bert. That was just really great. I want to thank Ford and Arik for our greeting, and I want to thank Paul Casey for the meeting reporting. Don't say 75 years in the meeting reports, please. I like to think I'm younger. Anyway, we have had our guests that are on the board, and there may be somebody that's missing, but we're trying to be up to date and all of that. And now I would like to introduce Jen Gladys, who will come up to make an introduction, and she will be followed by Jennifer Porto, who will also be making an introduction of our new members. Come on up.
Happy birthday, President John. I know it's going to be amazing to have me up here for a couple of minutes, not talking about myself, and I promise I'm going to do a great job. Rotary Club of Seattle. I am Jen Gladish, Classification Banking, and I am very, very happy to introduce to you Derek Zietz, Classification Healthcare. He is a remarkable individual. Derek's story begins on an 80-acre farm in Cedar Point, Kansas, where he grew up with his nearest neighbors a mile away, these neighbors being his grandparents. In 2012, Derek earned his first master's degree and began his career as an advocate for victims of crime from marginalized communities, specifically the LGBTQ community at the Rainbow Center. That's wonderful, isn't it? Okay. His passion for helping others led him to Greater Lakes, where he served as a community behavioral health therapist and small teams leader. Derek's dedication and leadership skills shone through when he became the clinic manager at Valley Cities, overseeing a team of 26. I can hardly oversee myself. Wait, not about me. During this time, Derek also pursued an MBA. While he was doing this, he was pursuing an MBA from University of Washington Foster School of Business, demonstrating his commitment to personal and professional growth. He then joined Providence in their corporate finance department. Currently, Derek is a finance manager of FP&A strategy of Fred Hutch. His journey with the Rotary Club of Seattle began in 2016, thanks to his mentor and one of my favorite people, Dorothy Bullitt. I have not met a person that Dorothy Bullitt brought to Rotary that I didn't fall in love with. Their reconnection in September of 2024 inspired Derek to join us in the Rotary Club to build his network and give back to communities locally and internationally. What a perfect place to do that. Derek is also a sailor, a passion that has profoundly influenced his life. He recalls his first sailing experience as a meditative moment that guided him to name his private practice, Anchor Counseling and Consulting, where he supports people through life transitions. He launched his practice while simultaneously working at Providence. He really can do a lot. For Derek, the anchor symbolizes the balance between finding stability when you need it and rest when you can, knowing when to move forward, a principle he applies in both his work and personal life. Beyond his professional achievements, Derek is a man of many interests. He has been a hobby winemaker, sung with the Seattle Men's Chorus, and let me just tell you, I'm never sitting next to him again. I had to hear him sing in my ear, and I can't carry a tune in a bucket, so I will not make that mistake again, but beautiful voice. And he enjoys visiting art museums and has a love for cars. He shares his home with a miniature schnauzer named Addie and a Siberian cat named Chaos. And for all of us who have cats, we know that's probably a very fitting name. Raised by powerful women, he has a natural inclination and passion for issues that impact women. Derek is committed to leaving a sustainable legacy that makes a lasting impact. Please join me in welcoming Derek Zietz, a true testament to dedication, compassion, and the spirit of community.
Hi there. Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Porto, COO of Stokes Lawrence, and I'm here today for this wonderful introduction of Susan Saphir. It is my pleasure to welcome Susan to our Seattle 4 Rotary community. Susan's mentor is Cynthia Chereau, and her classification is Human and Community Services. Susan brings a wealth of experience across multiple disciplines, and it has a deep passion for service. As Director of Community Engagement and Partnerships at Sound, she collaborates with local organizations to build brand awareness and strategic partnerships. For those of you that don't know, Sound operates 16 locations in King County dedicated to mental health and substance use treatment. She finds her work meaningful, and when I met with her, she describes Sound's clinicians as the angels that walk among us. Originally from the Chicago suburbs, Susan studied English at the University of Michigan before working in development and event planning for the Jewish Federation of Chicago, a role that she absolutely loved. After earning her MBA from Duke, she transitioned to marketing at Dell Computers, assisting with the corporate shift from those desktop to computers to laptops. So we have Susan to thank for that. All right, so in 2008, another accomplishment, she co-authored Dialysis Without Fear with her parents, Dr. Daniel and Marjorie Offer. Published by the Oxford University Press, the book guides patients and families through the emotional and practical challenges of dialysis, a deeply important project for Susan. Susan and her husband, Ariel, met in business school and have 2 daughters, Stella, a sophomore at her alma mater, University of Michigan, and Liliana, a senior at Duke, who's soon headed to work in New York. Their empty nest is now filled with the love of 2 Labradoodles, Suki and Teddy. And as a family, they enjoy hiking, traveling, and simply hanging out together. And I just noticed those really cool pictures are up on the screen of Susan and her family. And one of Susan's most unique traditions, which should be on the screen there, is a multi-day wilderness canoe trip with lifelong friends. Every few years, they embark on a 6-day journey, carrying everything they need and even portaging their canoes through rugged terrain, a tradition born from their summer camp days in northern Minnesota. It's such a testament to adventure, resilience, and friendship. Beyond these epic trips, Susan enjoys knitting, playing mahjong, and cherishing time with her friends and families. She is passionate about service and has already joined our International Service Committee, eager to engage further in Rotary's mission. So please join me in welcoming Susan to Seattle 4.
covers, they've got magnets, so they're stuck together, and I finally got them apart. Here's yours, Susan, and I will say, you know, you really keep the body, University of Michigan alum also. I'm really excited about that. And we are big supporters of the men's chorus, so just keep singing along. Thank you. You probably didn't hear all of the things I was saying. I didn't. But now we have a wonderful time to be able to hear from our speaker today. And I get the real pleasure of introducing Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland. Now, I know Marilyn for a long time. Actually, you know, I have to go back many years because her best friend in Tacoma worked in our company for over 30 years. And so we have a little bit of a connection, a Tacoma connection when she was mayor, and also when she was the CEO of our Greater Seattle Chamber of Commerce. And really involved in business here. So that will sort of prompt you on some questions that you may want to ask, but I'm going to ask some questions too. So, but anyway, Marilyn proudly represents Washington's 10th Congressional District, which includes part of Tacoma. It also includes JBLM, which is rather an important part also. She was born in Seoul, South Korea, and is the first African-American to represent Washington State in the Pacific Northwest at the federal level, and is one of the first Korean-American women elected to Congress. She's got a twofer there. That's good. As the daughter of a veteran and a former mayor, she brings a deep-seated passion for service and the experience of rebuilding a recession-era economy to her work on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and House Armed Services Committee, which is extremely important for our state, especially right now. She serves as secretary of the Congressional Black Caucus and is a member of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. She came to Congress to ensure that big government works for the South Sound and serve as a voice for traditionally underrepresented communities as we rebuild our economy that works for all of us. And come on up, Marilyn. We're so happy to have you. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all, and I am more than thrilled, which is an understatement, to be in Washington State and not in Washington, D.C. right now. But I also say that because it is incredibly important for those of us who serve in Congress to actually spend time here at home with people outside of our political bubble. And as we look at what is happening right now in the country, it is incredibly important for us to do a couple of things. To find common ground where it still exists, but also to make sure that we do not lose sight of the people who sent us to Congress and who we have to serve. And in some of these conversations that are taking place with Elon Musk, arbitrarily and randomly using a chainsaw in the name of government efficiency, instead of doing things with a scalpel, with goals in mind, looking at systems, looking at where we can cut, where we can improve, and what we can do, it's a challenging time right now. People are going from being fearful to being angry to saying to Democrats, do something. And we hear that a lot. And those are legitimate concerns because people are afraid. And some people have said to me, the Democrats need to impeach Donald Trump. Well, if you know how government works, that's going to be a little difficult in the minority when we do not bring forward articles of impeachment. You should have Donald Trump and Elon Musk arrested. Again, not something we can do with this Department of Justice and the way government works. You should pass a law to outlaw someone like Musk who has complete conflict of interest from doing what he's doing. Again, a challenge. But I don't say this to come here and make excuses. I come here with a request of every single group of people to whom I have the chance to address. And I want to make something clear here. When I talk about my concerns and the challenges of what the Trump-Musk administration is doing, this is not a criticism of a single person who voted for Donald Trump or a criticism of anyone who decided to sit an election out. I'm not here to judge you and criticize you for the choice that you made in 2024. You chose what you did based on what you thought was best for this country and your own interests. We respect that. But as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, I have a responsibility to let you know how some of these actions may hurt you. And as we look at some of the challenges we're facing right now, we know government is very, very divided. And at the same time, there are places when we are actually working together. So I sit on the House Armed Services Committee, and we know that we have a housing shortage crisis in Washington State. It's why the cost of housing is high. It's why people can't find a place to rent. It's very difficult. And representing 40,000 active duty service members, 60,000 of their family members, plus a lot of civilians who go to work every day on the base, we have to do what we can to improve housing and providing a bigger supply. 70% of the people who are in the military who serve do not live on post. They live outside of the post. So we have to plus up the supply of housing around post. And I am proud to be a co-sponsor with my colleague, Blake Moore, a Republican from Utah, to provide incentives to build more housing that are within a 15-mile radius of a military base, making it more affordable, incentivizing developers, and trying to address the housing crisis. Yesterday, I was at Joint Base Lewis McChord, and we were building 200 units of housing with a private developer, Liberty Housing, because we know we need more multifamily housing and single-family housing to serve the military. And then I will end with this because I want the Q&A part to be the biggest section of this conversation. Every day when I go to work here at home or in Washington, D.C., I say to myself, what can I do to represent the people who need my help? And what can I do to find bipartisan ways to work together? It's a little difficult right now, I'm going to admit that. But as someone who's a member of the New Democrat Coalition, who prides ourselves on actually being effective in getting things done, we'll always try to find a way to work together. But we also have a duty to speak up and to speak out and to make sure that people are fully aware of how some of these policies and some of these actions may in fact be detrimental to their health, safety, well-being, and livelihood. I don't want to end on a negative note because John and I are going to have a very good conversation, but I thank you for the opportunity to be here today. You all are leaders in your own right, so I look forward to talking with John, and I look forward to getting questions from you in the audience. Thank you so much. Does it have, I know, does this have wheels? We're talking about this ginormous podium that's blocking everyone's view. Can we like maybe put it back here? Like I show up and tell everyone what to do. There we go. There we go. That's better.
Good.
Yes. Okay.
Well, as I said, we're really happy to have Marilyn here because she brings a different type of background, especially for us knowing that in downtown Seattle, we're very concerned about our revitalization. And so I think that one of the things I'd like to just ask you is, what is your thoughts about revitalizing the city right now? We'll get into some other topics, but we're very concerned. One of our big things in downtown Rotary, in Seattle Rotary, is our revitalization. So tell us a little bit about what you think we can do to make, to revitalize our downtown, to bring more retail, to bring more activities to our city.
So I will admit that I have not spent a lot of time in downtown Seattle recently, but when I was coming to this event, I remember saying, where is everybody? Because when I worked at the chamber back in 2019, downtown was bustling, it was hustling. So that was very apparent to me. So, at the federal level, I will talk about what we can do to help local government, but I view this as pretty much a local and state government issue. First of all, is this being recorded?
Yes.
Okay. No, I have to ask this question.
Yeah, this isn't like CDRT where it's off the record. This is
Yeah,
on
and
the
it's being
record, yes.
recorded. Okay. So I think there are a few things at play. And one of the things that we have to admit that have had an effect on downtown cores is that people are working from home. We cannot deny and pretend that doesn't have an impact here. And so I don't know what specifically is happening with some of the larger employers in the downtown core. Are people coming back to the office? And if they do, how many times a week does that happen? Because we know that there is an economic ecosystem. When people come to work, they are going out to lunch. They may be staying for happy hour. They may be buying something at the store. They may be doing their dry cleaning. So there is definitely an economic ecosystem that depends on people coming to work, walking around on a beautiful day, and just being part of a downtown core. I would also say, I'll ask you a question, John, then I'll answer it. What does it look like now in downtown Seattle with regard to people who are homeless?
Well, I'll say that we clearly in Seattle have a homeless problem, and we have for a long time. It's getting better. It's getting much better. But we have to, in my mind, look a little bit further at what some other cities have done. It's interesting. I never think of Texas as a place that we would want to emulate, both politically and otherwise. But Houston has done an incredible job of taking care of their homeless. We have put lots of money into into solving the homeless problem, more so than probably any other metropolitan area. And we have done it in a very poor way.
Okay, so let me put my mayor hat on here and understanding that this is being recorded. Hey, camera. But I think one of the challenges that we have in West Coast cities about addressing this very horrible human crisis is that we're afraid to be accused of being mean. And it is far more cruel to let people languish on the streets and use drugs and live in their own filth than it is to actually try to find a way to get them help, to get them housed, and sometimes, sadly, involuntarily.
Here, here.
And this is not like hooray for cruelty. It's hooray for kindness and actually getting people the help that they need. People end up homeless for a lot of reasons, but let me talk about the federal nexus here. So in the United States, we started not funding at the federal level mental and behavioral health systems. We said the state can handle it, the county can handle it, you all handle it here locally. State and local government does not have the resources on the scale needed to address this in a meaningful way. So we nibble around the edges, we launch a program, and we don't really make meaningful progress. So one thing I would do is I would really look at the federal level to make massive investments in mental and behavioral health. The second thing I would do is that there was a bill that was in play in the Senate called the Build Back Better Act. Horrible name, but good intentions. It was a multi-billion-dollar investment in housing. And if we have housing investments at that scale at the federal level, in partnership with public and private partners, then I think there's a way to build housing of all types for people in different stages of their lives and to get people the help they need and the housing they need. But we have to be very intentional, and we have to make the investments that are smart and strategic with a scalpel, not just thinking throwing money at it and being afraid to be called mean is how we're going to solve it.
Thank you. And, just sort of as a follow-up on that, you really, both being mayor of Tacoma as well as the CEO of the Seattle Chamber and now back in Washington, D.C., how does that background in business seem to inform your work in Congress?
I would say of my professional experiences, having served in local government is probably the strongest asset that I have there. And there are about a dozen of us who've served as mayors before we got to Congress. And we are just focused on getting things done. When you serve as a mayor, even if you run as a Democrat or Republican, and in Tacoma, it's nonpartisan. And so I wasn't focused on party politics as much as, are the lights going to come on? Is the garbage getting picked up? When someone wants us to fix a street, do we have the resources to do it? And will a winter freeze come along and ruin everything and make people say I didn't do it? But I just think that there's a different idea of how we're supposed to perform and deliver, and finding ways to work in a bipartisan way when it makes sense. But you know, having served as CEO of the chamber, I recognize that our economy is a giant ecosystem. We have large global businesses that employ a lot of people, and they provide opportunities for small businesses through purchasing, through janitorial services, often opportunities for minority-owned businesses. So when you hear me talk about economic development in businesses, it is a giant ecosystem that supports our largest businesses and our smaller businesses. And at the end of the day, it's jobs for people, and that's tied to their livelihoods.
And clearly that's something that the Democratic Party missed in the last election, is that caring.
Correct.
And I've just editorialized.
I have attended so many autopsies about the 2024 election. So if you want to have one, we can, but.
No, I think, yeah, we've heard plenty, and every day on NPR, I hear something new. It's probably about the same. But tell us, you know, going back to your first term in Congress, what surprised you the most when you became a member of Congress?
So, you know, I serve with a lot of people who have a lot of different life and professional experience. So some people come from state legislatures, some people come from the nonprofit sector. For some folks, this is really like the first time they've had a steady paycheck. So it's a whole broad swath of people. So I would say my biggest surprise in 2021, when I was first sworn into Congress, was January 6th. Big old surprise. I mean, I knew that there were conversations about questioning an election. I never thought I'd be sitting in my office watching in real time on television people scaling the steps of the Capitol, coming in, rolling through with a Confederate flag, vandalizing, and doing all kinds of things trying to hurt people. So obviously, biggest surprise. But I will say the flip side of that, in a pleasant way, is that my biggest surprise was that despite the division, despite what you see if you watch cable TV news, depending on what your preference is, for the most part, I work with really thoughtful, kind people who are doing the best they can with what they have in this environment.
I like to hear that. I mean, that's something that I've discovered too when I've gone back to DC, that the interpersonal relationships are really very positive, and it's what we hear in the media oftentimes, and what people will project to the media that ends up being that terribly divisive situation. I'm going to ask just one more question, then I want to open it up because I know that everybody here has something to ask you. You know, going on all of that, what so far has been your proudest moment in Congress?
So I would say there are two of them. I was sworn in on January 3rd, 2021. And this was during the pandemic. So I was a pandemic freshman. I had to campaign for Congress during a pandemic and got sworn in. So we were still masked up at the time. And because our families were not allowed to travel to go to these festivities, which typically happen all week long, we were basically there by ourselves. So my mother was still alive at the time. And because she couldn't travel because of the COVID in her health, I wanted to make sure she was able to see her daughter on the House floor during this mass swearing in. So I wore a traditional Korean dress called hanbok. And it's a very beautiful, elegant gown that is for special occasions. And I wore it. I was the first person in the history of Congress to ever wear that on the House floor, and it went viral. I had no idea that it was going to take a trip around the world. It was all over Korean press in Korea. It was on the BBC. I did an interview on NPR, and I just had no idea that that one small gesture to show respect for my mother and to show cultural pride as being one of the first Korean American women was going to do that. There's another moment though. My second point of pride is what you learn in Congress is that it takes a really long time to get bills passed, like a really long time. And when I got there, as a representative of Joint Base Lewis McChord, understanding that housing is such a big deal, we were actually we were able to get an increase in the basic allowance for housing that military families get. In the most recent National Defense Act, we got a 15% raise for those E1 through E4 because the distinction between the younger members and the folks who'd been serving for a while, there was just a huge gulf. So that was a conversation about equitable pay for those serving E1 through E4, and they needed that money so desperately. So I would say those are probably two of my proud moments.
And I thank you for that as General Jimmy, and from my Navy end of things, I thank you for that. And before we go on to other questions, I just want to give a shout out to our Consul General from Korea, who is here today, and is a member of the club, of course. And so what you just said, I'm sure really hit right at home. So thank you, Marilyn. We're opening it up now. With Thomas here, he wants to have a nice remark. On, is this on?
I think it is.
You can.
It is perfect. Okay. Congresswoman, I actually want to say why I'm here. Which
Okay.
Is
It's
because
not
of door.
not on.
Check. It's on.
Because of, so about 30 some years ago, I met Dorothy Bullock. And I was volunteering in White Center, and Dorothy was part of a group that was asked, was it Rotary at the time?
Yes. It was High Point Project.
Yeah, asking people in Seattle to do more, John, to your point, about everything, about housing, about homelessness, and stepping up. And I came full circle because I ended up working a while ago on the Congresswoman's campaign when she ran for council, because someone asked me to do something, and I appreciate you doing that. Congresswoman, my question for you is, I want the Democratic Party and the Republican Party to ask me to go to church basements, to go to synagogues, mosques, wherever, and to do more for my country, not ask me for $5. What can we do on that front?
So I'll give you two answers, Thomas. I think one of the things that has eroded a bit in our society, which is why Rotarians are so important in a lot of civic organizations whose membership is dwindling over time, is that we've lost our social capital. And we've lost our social capital because we spend way too much time on our devices having shorthand conversations and not having the privilege of being with people in community, in person, where when you have a discussion, even if it's a disagreement, you're getting the benefit of tone of voice, of expression, of body language, and context. When you get something on a text message, you have no idea how that's coming at you. And so I would say one thing that I would ask all of us to do here is to help build social capital by doing more things in person. And I am guilty as anyone of that. When I get home, yeah, go ahead, let's applaud for that. When I come dragging into the condo at 11:30 on a Friday night from DC, I want to hide in the condo and not see other people. But I have a responsibility as a member of Congress to be out in the community and out in community more. So that's my one request. As far as how we bridge the divide that exists, here's what I'm going to tell you all, and this is the absolute truth. I'm going to hold a town hall on Thursday in Yelm, Washington, which is the part of my district where I lost 60-40. And I'm doing that very intentionally because I need to show up where people don't expect to see me. I know that most people in that district did not vote for me, but even if they didn't vote for me, I still represent them in their interests. So I want to hear directly from them, even if I disagree, what's on their mind, how they feel about what's happening, so that I can take that message back to Washington, D.C., Thomas. And when I have a discussion with people and we don't agree on something, I ask a very important question, and it's this: why do you think that's true? And I don't say it with snark in my voice or condescension. It is an actual attempt to try to listen and understand. Why do you think that's true? So that's my answer.
Hello. Hi, Marilyn. Jan Levy. Marilyn was a great leader when she was at the chamber.
and I was at Leadership Tomorrow. So thank you for being here. My question is, what keeps you up at night?
My schedule going from West Coast to East Coast is my first default answer. No, it's really interesting you asked that because I would say in the last 2 weeks or so, first of all, as my husband will tell you, I'm a world champion sleeper. I do not need a sleep aid or a glass of wine. I'm a world champion sleeper. But lately, I've been tossing and turning at night. So I will tell you what worries me. There are many things that worry me, but a couple things. I worry that all this damage that's being done, the media environment in which we have to try to govern, where there's so many places to get bad information and not fact check, is going to continue eroding trust in our institutions. So much so that more people than in the last election are going to start sitting them out. 90 million people didn't vote in the last election. That is more than the votes combined that Trump and Harris got. People are so disaffected right now and have so little trust in the federal government that they're saying, I don't have a role here. So that keeps me up, just the continual erosion of trust. The other thing that keeps me up, honestly, is watching some of the infighting that happens within the Democratic Party. The other thing that worries me is the fact that we need two high-functioning parties in this thing called democracy for it to work well. The other thing that worries me is that we have a commander-in-chief who is bypassing the legislative branch, who was meant to serve as a check and balance in this form of government. In addition to all the other things happening with Social Security, firing veterans, taking health care away from children, kicking people out of nursing homes, all on my mind, but I worry about the larger question about a true representative democracy, and are we going to be able to survive given all the headwinds that we're facing?
Here we go. Yeah, one question over here to your left.
Thanks for being here, John Adams. And I have a question about farming. Might be relevant in the Yelm discussion. In the last week, I drove over 500 miles through the Central Valley in California. ICE had been through doing sweeps in the week before and just taken a couple dozen people. But what I saw during the season of spring planting in over 500 miles of farming country was not one single laborer in the fields anywhere. In multiple days of driving long distances, it was unusual and shocking. So the thing that I'm wondering, because people are upwardly mobile when they're immigrants, and often it's the undocumented that are working in those fields. Is there a smart and strategic policy that you and others are working on that will help? Because I really fear that we've got a catastrophe pending for our farmers. And what's your view on this?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. So really his question is, can we come up with a smart strategic immigration policy that allows our businesses, because that's what farms are, to have the workforce that they need while doing the things to address some of the challenges that people have about enforcing our border. And the sad part about talking about immigration in the US is that every time we start to talk about it, it flips right to the border. We have people here from around the world who are undocumented. Most people in the United States who are undocumented overstayed their visas and they got here on a plane. But if we look at immigration in a very common sense way, there was a bipartisan bill in the Senate that was worked on for months that was going to address our workforce challenges, find a path to citizenship for kids who were born here who were dreamers, and to be strong on the border and using technology to detect some things that were coming across the borders, whether it's fentanyl or anything illegal. So we had something in place, and someone told them not to bring it forward because they wanted to use it as a campaign issue. So there's a piece of legislation that was worked on very, very hard, very thorough, that's bipartisan, that exists. I would like to see that piece of legislation come back. But I think you're bringing up one very important point about our economy. This economy depends on immigrant talent, whether it's technology, healthcare, agriculture, you name it. And if we don't have a thoughtful, smart way to get people to citizenship, or at least let them feel safe here, they're not going to show up for work. They're going to be afraid. They won't call the police if there's a crime that happens, or or there's domestic violence. And so my response is, let's look at immigration obviously from a moral imperative, but let's be smart about it and ask ourselves, if this economy is going to hum the way it should, if farmers are going to have the talent that they need, we have to find a way to get people path to a citizenship or some way where they can come to work and not be afraid.
Thank you. Thank you. And our last question here for the occasion interview here.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Lona Tumwebazi, and my last question is, I will start with an African proverb which says, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children. In spite of what is going on with the politics here and around the world, what do you think we should do as individuals here, including yourself and anybody in America and around the world, to make sure that we actually plant the right seeds for the generations that we have ahead of us, so
What was
that
the-
they do
what-
not face the same problems?
What was the last part you said before the generation ahead of us?
What should we do to plant today? What do you see as the priorities today? That each one of us, that is within our control, whether you're a policymaker, whether you are a Rotarian, whether you're a member, you have a family, or you are anywhere you are, that would plant the right seeds for the generations to come. This is in spite of differences in politics and things going on around us.
So I would say the most important thing that we can do is to not be afraid to have hard conversations. And I come back to this because we tend to be passive consumers of information. We'll look something up or something will pop up and like, well, I guess I didn't agree with that, and we just move on. So having difficult conversations about difficult topics is the biggest favor that we can do for the next generation. Because I tell folks, every successive generation has a responsibility to set things up for the next one that comes after it. People often ask me, why did you ever decide to run for office? And I tell the story about my family, my father serving in the military, being stationed in Korea, wearing a uniform of the US Army, coming back to the US and not being afforded regular basic rights. I think about where they came from. I think about the fact that voting rights happened in my lifetime. I was a little baby, but it was part of our conversation. So it's really understanding that we as leaders have a duty to have conversations with people that are difficult. Because if we rely exclusively on social media and what we're being fed, we're never going to have an authentic conversation about anyone. So, you know, look in the mirror, look to ourselves, and that includes me as well.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of our Rotary Service Foundation and Rotary here, we are donating 600 healthy meals. You don't get them though.
I need a healthy
we are
meal.
donating them to Harvest Against Hunger, and thank you so much for coming.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for having me here today.
I don't need the podium. That's all right. Your birthday. Yeah, thank you, Jaime. But just don't go anywhere. It's your time on here. We want to thank also REB Enterprises, Carl Benke, Bloodworks Northwest for their meeting sponsorship. And now, Jaime, come on up again. You put the podium for yourself.
I needed it, that's why. Appreciate it. It's great to see everyone here. Thank you for showing up, man. We appreciate it. Thank you, Congressman Strickland. Appreciate your time. Love your words. I love, most importantly of all the words, is the fact of having tough conversations. That's something that we all kind of shy away from, so I'll take that with it. So I'm here to give you the latest and greatest that's happening at Rotary. Saturday, March 22nd, we have Puget Sound Maritime Luncheon with Steve Nevey of Washington State Ferries. Join Seattle Rotary Mariners for Puget Sound Maritime Spring Luncheon on the 22nd at noon at the Center of Wooden Boats. Steve Nevey of Washington State Ferries will be the guest speaker. Tickets are available online, and you can find the link in the week's newsletter. The following week will be on Zoom only, March 26th, and our featured guest will be David Domonke. Duh, I knew I was going to mess that one up when I saw that. Anyway, thank you for taking that in. Of Common Power, a voter volunteer mobilization organization. Should be very interesting. And the following week on Wednesday, April 2nd, our lunch meeting at the Plymouth Church, socialize at noon. This meeting will take us back to the Plymouth Church with the guest presentation from new head of the Seattle Art Museum, Scott Stullen. Please ensure that you purchase your tickets by next Friday so you can get an accurate account. And I know you guys, I've heard some stories of hesitations towards the RSVP. I promise you to help us out getting a better account so we can have better on our budget. On April 16th, lunch meeting, Plymouth Church, socialize. Oh, I said that one already. Did I? No, I didn't. I did not. Okay. This is with Jeff Robinson. He rescheduled earlier this year, and Jeff Robinson is the founder of Who We Are Project and ranks in the top 100 Black lawyers in America by Black Enterprise Magazine. A lot of knowledge coming that way. And on Saturday, my first ever Rotary volunteer experience, coming back again, is your Rotary Boys and Girls on April 19th, Boys and Girls Club Cleanup Day. I remember this last time, and we had some volunteers fall short, so maybe we could change that around this time around. It would be, save the date, expect more details coming soon, but we'll just kind of plant that seed. And next is our new experiment folder format of Nicole giving us Happy Bucks. Come on now, I know you got some good stories about you want to share with everyone here. So Nicole will be going around with the QR sign and stories.
I'll start it off. So Happy Bucks, we're just, if you have cash or you want to use this QR code, it'll come to your table, but we're just trying to share good things happening in your life so that other people feel the joy. And I'm going to start with, because tomorrow I'm going to Nashville for the first time for just fun, and I'll be back Monday. So I'm going to do a Happy Buck for myself. Oh, we have another one.
We have one.
Oh, you got it.
Hey, I have cash. It's fine. Hi, everyone. Andre Anderson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the CEO of Girl Scouts of Western Washington. And my Happy Bucks is that Sunday we finished up cookie season. You know it. It is, just for those of you who don't know, it is the largest girl-led entrepreneur program on the planet. And we had almost 15,000 young entrepreneurs out there running their own cookie companies. And so I couldn't be more proud of them. So I have money for that. Here you go.
Anyone else? Oh, here we go. All right, future president over here. This is going to be a good one.
I have Happy Bucks because I now have a VP of operations and a new position for our club, Cynthia Shiro. 40 bucks.
Oh, here we go. We got another one.
I have 2 Happy Bucks. I'm going to pay for David to speak after me because we have something really excited from the auction, but I'm paying. My Happy Bucks is because last year I took a lot of time off for a lot of family emergencies, and tomorrow I'm taking my 3 daughters on the first vacation that we've been on in a year and a half to go ski at Lookout Mountain in Idaho.
Hi. Oh, all right. I just wanted to say that my Happy Bucks go to becoming a Rotarian, and to say thank you to my mentor, Cynthia Shiro, and to my introductor, Jennifer Porto. So thank you very much.
Hi, Nicole. Well, thanks, Jen, first of all, but I'm going to put my own money in. I'm going to just thank everybody that was there for our Hearts and Wine event that we did last Friday. It was a spectacular event, lots of fun, raised a ton of money that is very much needed currently and in the not too distant future in the hunger relief system. So it's going to be important work. Thank you all who attended for joining us at that. My Happy Buck is also, if you were at the event, you saw the talented Jen Gladish as one of the MCs for the live auction portion. She stepped up with like 2 days advance notice, maybe 3, and knocked it out of the park as anybody would expect. So Jen, thank you for, gosh, for being you, for being so competent. Thank you.
That concludes Happy Bucks. Appreciate it.
No, it doesn't.
Here we go.
No, I have to, you guys all sang happy birthday to me. So I have to contribute something here. Yeah. All right, thank you. Yeah, there's always something that you can raise money for. All good causes. And we certainly need our funds for Rotary right now, given the situation with USAID and the World Health Organization and what we do on an international scene. So remember, please, donate. All right, well, we are now nearing the end of the Rotary program. It's been really fun for me to be here with all of you, and thank you again so much, Marilyn, for being here with us. I like to tell you about occurrences on March 19th. You already know one of them. Thank you, Raymond, for letting everybody know about one of the birthdays for today. There are others, like in 1848, Wyatt Earp was born. 1891, one of my heroes, Earl Warren, was born, the 14th Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. Sort of on a negative, in 1906, Adolf Eichmann was born. This is going the full gamut of things here. And in 1947, Glenn Close was born. All right. A few of the other occurrences. In 1831, the first documented bank heist in U.S. history occurred when burglars stole $245,000 in 1831 value from Citibank, which is, well, it was called Citibank, which is now Citibank, on Wall Street. It hasn't changed, but they stayed in business. In 1918, the U.S. Congress established time zones and approved daylight savings time. Yeah, I know. And we're still stuck with this thing. I hate changing the darn clock. Sometimes it's automatic, but other times you try and do it on my telephone. I can never remember how to do it, and it always gets screwed up. And it takes forever. All right, in 1931, Governor Fred Balzar signed a bill legalizing gambling in Nevada. So now it's gambling all over the place. So today is St. Joseph's Day. And one of the things that I kept telling my parents, my middle name is Joseph. They got that, was the wrong religion, but they got it anyway. And it's whatever, I'm very ecumenical. Father's Day in Spain, Portugal, Italy, Honduras, and Bolivia. Now, don't ask me why all those countries have it. There's really no relation between the countries. And today is the day that the swallows return to Capistrano every year. And with that, we're adjourned.